these days is a divine place for the Hindus, where the rivers Jamuna and Ganga meet. People also believe that the river Saraswati meets there, but cannot be seen. Here, Guruji came and enlightened the people that washing the body does not remove the filth in our souls. The third question asks, what were the highlights of Guruji's message to the people, and are we the Sikhs of today living up to Guruji's teachings? In my opinion, Guruji's message to the people was, truth is high, higher still is truthful living. This divine message was crystallized as the very essence of Sikhism. Truthful living emphasizes compassion, humility, selflessness, and honesty. This can be realized by leading a normal and humble life. One does not need to isolate himself. One can attain liberation by living and working in a society. In my opinion, I don't think we the Sikhs of today are living up to Guruji's teaching. We should aim for a society where people live in harmony and have respect for each other. We should earn our livelihood honestly and help the needy. There should be a desire to have high ideals and to serve others. In fact, we shouldn't forget the concept of Sarvatapala, the good for all. Guruji ka Khalsa,
Guruji. Do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. By Ralph Waldo Emerson. This quote declares to don't follow what other people have done. Instead, you should be a leader and do something that's never been done before and show people a new way to live. This relates to how Guru Nanak Dev Ji had taken a different path and how he had educated people a new way about God. At about 1206 to 1215-26, the political perspectives were dependent on 5 different domains of emperors that ruled India. When Guru Nanak appeared on world stage, Behlo Lodi was the king of Delhi. During his time, theft, bribery, and treachery were popular. Guru Nanak expresses these people like savages, people who would rip open their hearts and fill their mouths with blood. Guru Nanak verified that living a luxurious life was the only thing emperors would ever care about. For example, to get more rich, Hindus were forced to pay a tax on their life, and if they didn't, they'd be slaughtered. Muslim rulers were harsh on Hindu civilians, whereas Hindus were really big to Muslims. Religious perspectives were also dependent on Brahmins, Khwazis, and Yogis. Brahmins were the preacher of Dharma in Hinduism, also called by Guru Nanak the butcher of humanity. Brahmins would usually practice God's beliefs in preposterous manners for their selfish motives, monies, or virgins. People would often give their alms to Brahmins, hoping that they would receive a long life. Plus, if a Brahmin was caught committing a wrong deed, that he would be forgiven or unnoticed of it, because they were treated like gods in India. Qazis were people who had been assigned to the task of conveying justices. They would wear dresses that looked like religious or honest officials. However, they would go bankrupt and be caught into bribes that involved changing a prisoner's verdict. Seeing as the system was written in Arabic and Persian, they would often make up the meaning to their likeliness. Yogis would believe that God is pleased by the makeup we wear. They would usually apply ash on their forehead and apply holes in the ears to look more sophisticated. Their religious affairs are similar in many ways. This is because people in India still follow Brahmins' way of life and still commit horrendous deeds for their selfish motives. Also, there is still an animosity between Brahmins and Sikhs, but a number of political problems still exist and remain unsolved in India, which makes the political affairs the same. There are good and bad qualities, and it's up to us to decide which path we should follow. Even though a religion is never bad, it is the people of the religion that may have bad or corrupt practices disguised with the name of their religion. Guru Nanak took 3 odysseys to teach the ideology of Sikhism. Guru Nanak had courage and ambition which was compelled by God, which helped him take long and strenuous odysseys. Guru Nanak believed that he was given the task by God so he could tell people the true meanings and messages of them. To do so, he held large gatherings in which he taught Kirtan and Gurbani. Also, he told people about God and corrected them whenever they had wrong ideas about him. For example, when Guruji came back after his first odyssey, he was invited to pray with Nawab Dalal Khan. He noticed that they were focusing on stuff like money or crops during their prayer. Instead, Guruji started to laugh. When asked about it, he replied saying that who could he have joined praying with if no one was focusing on God? Guruji required immense amounts of courage during his odysseys, because people would threaten or assault him. One time, when Guruji was resting, both of his feet were pointing towards a Kaaba. Then, a couple of guards came and scolded him to move his feet away. However, Guruji replied that the whole world is a house of God, so turn my feet to where God is not. The force behind Guruji was God, and that gave him support, courage, and ambition during his odysseys. I believe that Guruji's main message to us is being ingenuous or sincere. Guruji conveys to us that God is without fear, without hatred, He's self-born and lives among each of us. To be an honest man, so Guruji says, is to say God's name, practice kirtan to attach yourself more to God, and by learning and understanding good Brahman. I do believe that Sikhs today are following Guruji's messages and living up to them. However, even though we have a population of 30 million, only 20 to 30% is following it. This means that boys are cutting and turning their ear, and our community is forgetting more and more about religion. What needs to be improved is that since people are forgetting our way of life, we should make them learn about our religion, so that they would have an idea as to what we are from and what our emblem means, so we can pass it down from each generation. Guru Nanak told us that God is always there for you. You just have to be honest and make a good difference so that people remember you.
Guru nu aap dharti te fera paan, sach chandrama ban ke dina taan, andher mitha, jad khoon diya nadiya chaliya, babar vadi gecha, ek aaya satnam chupandaya, diti tan bata. Sat Sangat Ji, Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. A Qazi once told Alauddin Khilji, if a Muslim wishes to spit in the mouth of a Hindu, he should open his mouth wide. God has created Hindus to be slaves of Muslims. This statement by the Qazi sums up the political environment of the 15th century, when Guru Nanak Dev Ji appeared on the world stage. In those days, India was constantly being invaded by Muslim kings, who had no compassion for anyone who was not their faith. They believed that if they killed a non-Muslim, it was considered jihad. This meant that they would die, that when they died, they were ensured a wonderful time in heaven. Needless to say, with this kind of mentality, the Muslim rulers did not care at all about the people they ruled. They looted them, raped their women, and killed them for jihad. Many times, those who were left alive were made slaves. During Guru Nanak Dev Ji's time, there were two main religions in India, Hinduism and Islam. The Muslim Qazis believed that any non-believer of their faith had no right to live. The Hindus worshipped the creation rather than the creator, as they were afraid of the wrath of anything and everything. The Hindus had Brahmins and yogis as their religious leaders. It was believed that only Brahmins could get salvation, and in turn, they took full advantage of this. The yogis felt that you had to give up the world to find God. Guru Nanak Dev Ji describes them in the following lines. The Brahmin kills and then takes cleansing baths. The Qazi tells lies and eats filth. The yogi is blind and does not know his way. And the three of them devise their own destruction. Today's world has not changed much from those days. We have more religions, but even now there is animosity amongst them. Political leaders are still looking after their own interests instead of that of the masses. Different countries are suspicious of each other, and anyone who looks different from them is considered suspicious and is racially profiled. Guru Nanak Dev Ji undertook 4 marathon journeys called Udasis. When he was asked by Siddhas and yogis as to why he undertook these journeys, his answer was, I am searching for Gurmukhs through these Udasis. I think the force behind these Udasis is obvious in that he did not concern himself with saying that he had brought a message from God, but that the message of Guru itself, in essence, God. He had a deep mystical communion with God during a dip in River Bain. When he emerged, his statement was, Nako Hindu na Musliman. There is no Hindu, no Musliman. The call came to him to spread this truth and put humanity on the right path. Guru Nanak Dev Ji spread this message in a very interesting way. He would go to places where he could find a lot of people, and he would start singing this message with Mridana, his companion, and people would gather around him and start following him. Sometimes he would start doing the opposite of what he thought was wrong. When people questioned him, he would just give a very innocent but logical answer that made people realize their mistake. He never shied away from saying the truth, no matter how hard it was. An example of this can be seen in the hymns he sang about Babar's cruelty. Khurasan kasmana kiya, Hindusan daraya. Having attacked Khurasan, Babur terrified Hindustan. Guru Nanak also taught